Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this launch event for the UKCGE's UK Research Supervision Survey 2024. We'll hang on for a few seconds and wait for more people to join. Encourage you to ensure that you are muted, please. I can hear a little bit of background noise. Also, for the purposes of the Q&A, which we're hoping to have towards the end of this session, if you could relabel yourself, if you could give some kind of institutional affiliation onto your Zoom label, then that would be useful for the Q&A purposes. My name is Doug Cleaver. I'm the chair of UK CGE and co-PI on the RSVP project, as well as being director of the doctoral school at Sheffield Hallam University. And to emphasize that this session is being recorded. Hopefully you're seeing a notification to that effect as you join. We've got 1 hour today, and our plan of action, thanks Owen, in this hour is initially we're going to have some opening remarks from Stephen Hill, Director of Research at Research England, and then Owen Gowan, the Director of UKCG, myself, and Karen Clegg, the other co-PI from the RSVP project. We're going to be taking you through a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the findings from this year's survey. We'll then close that off with some considerations rather than recommendations that are taken from the survey, and then our intention is to open up the floor to some Q&A. Do please make liberal use of the chat function whilst the presentations are going on. We'll be monitoring that, and we'll be selecting questions either to address directly or perhaps will be opportunity for people to actually ask their questions directly in that Q&A time. But that's our plan of action for today. I'm not going to hang around because we want to make the most of our hour. So I'm delighted to welcome again Stephen Hill, Director of Research from Research England, who's going to give us some opening remarks. Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks very much, Doug, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here this afternoon for the launch of the UK Research Supervision Report. I think we can all agree that supervision of postgraduate students plays a central role in the research and innovation system. Supervisors develop, nurture and support our doctoral candidates who go on to make an impact in society through continuing their academic research, but most importantly, through a myriad of other career paths that they pursue. As a result of that centrality of the role of supervisors in the research system, I think it's vitally important that we understand their role better, that we understand their challenges, and we better understand the support they need for carrying out this important role. And that allows us to design and implement interventions that we need to have the very highest standards of research supervision, which will provide the best environments for our doctoral candidate. So the report that's published today is the second in a series, the first one being published in 2021, and is a really important contribution to that evidence about the environment around research supervision. It provides a baseline, and now that we have a second iteration, we can also look at changes and trends in the landscape around research supervision. I'm very pleased that the report is now firmly in the context of the Next Generation Research Supervision Project, which is a project being supported at least in part by the Research England Development Fund. We think this is a very important project in really taking research supervision in the UK to the next level, and it's an important activity for us in contributing to UKRI's New Deal for PGR. Essentially, supporting high-quality research supervision, in our view, is a central part of ensuring a positive experience and environment for doctoral students. And that positive environment for doctoral students is also likely to be something we're very interested in as we're developing the indicators for the people, culture and environment element of the next REF. As many of you will know, we've been spending a lot of time over the last year developing those indicators, and we'll be launching the pilot PCE activity very soon. But I think it's key in that we want to recognise and reward positive research cultures in the REF, and strong and supportive environments for doctoral research is surely part of that. So without giving anything away about what's in the indicators just yet, research supervision is clearly an important component of a positive research culture. So there are many fascinating insights to be found in the report that's being published today, and you're going to hear many of them from the speakers that follow me. But I just wanted, in my opening remarks, just to pull out one point that struck me from some of the data that is a challenge to us, or interested in those of us who are interested in top quality research supervision. So as I've already said, we know that studying for a PhD leads to many and diverse career opportunities, not just in academic research, but much, much wider than that. Indeed, it's clear that only a small minority of doctoral students will follow a conventional academic career path to a permanent academic post. That's always going to be a minority of the doctoral students we support. But this contrasts a little from some of the results from the survey. The primary motivations for supervision expressed by supervisors focused on developing candidates for an academic career. And a full third of the respondents didn't see advising on non-academic careers as part of their role, with 45% saying that they hadn't provided any such advice. So if we want our doctoral candidates flourishing and making the best contributions to society in a wide range of careers, then I think we need to see this mindset change and support supervisors to better enable them to fulfill this broader role in career advice. So this is an example of the sort of insight that I think comes from having really solid data that's provided in something like the research supervision support. So I'll conclude by thanking the RSVP team and UKCGE for all the work that's gone into producing this report. And I recommend it to all of you as essential reading if you're at all interested in research supervision. So thank you for your attention. I look forward to hearing the rest of the presentations this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stephen. And I wasn't expecting a little bit of a hint about things to do with REF. So we'll now move on. So Owen will start off in our whistle-stop tour by giving an overview of the what went into the survey and first tranche of the results. Owen.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Stephen, for that introduction. It was very kind. I'm delighted to be here to introduce some of the key findings from the survey, but I really wanted to start where Stephen finished, really, which is to thank everyone who was involved in producing the UK Research Supervision Survey. Particularly want to thank the Research Supervision Project, without whom we couldn't have got this survey off the ground, and through them, the Research England funding that supported it. We've got a slide later on that says that it takes a village to provide effective doctoral supervision. Well, what I can tell you is that it takes a village to provide effective research into doctoral supervision, and I really wanted to pause on this slide to acknowledge that. Thank you, everyone who contributed to the development of this report in one shape or another. But I know it's invidious to single people out, but I did want to single out Karen Clegg and Doug Cleaver. They are presenting this afternoon, so I'll leave it to them to tell you what they did for the report. But essentially, the considerations, the conclusion section of the report is theirs. Really grateful to them. So we were delighted. We were absolutely thrilled, in fact, with the response to the survey this year. 5,174 respondents. which was a huge increase on the 2021 survey, partly, I think, because of the momentum and the excitement that's being caused by the research supervision project itself. What I can say is that there was a wide spread of responses. We had all parts of the UK were represented, all career stages were represented, disciplinary spread was excellent, and all institution types were represented. The survey had 48 questions. It was a very comprehensive survey. I think one of the main things that we wanted to discover was what are the trends, what are the things that have changed since we first undertook the survey, as Stephen said, in 2021. But again, we want to use this evidence to understand the lived experiences, the attitudes of doctoral supervisors. What are their challenges that they're facing, and what are their needs, and how can we, as a kind of sector body, help to coordinate the response to those challenges and needs. So I want to start with this slide about what hasn't changed since 2021. So you'll see that this is a slide about the agreement about the roles involved in doctoral supervision. So by and large, there's a lot of agreement, consistency with 2021, which is a good thing because it validates the research that we conducted in 2021. I just wanted, though, in case you think that these findings are not surprising, to remind you that they are surprising. These 4 red circles, I think, indicate to do a bit of myth busting on some of the things that we sometimes say about doctoral supervisors. The first thing is that they do have an interest in professional development for their doctoral candidates. 93% of them think it's part of their role to recommend professional development. They do want to supervise a person, not a project. It's not just all about getting the thesis across the line. They do think, the vast majority think that, that responding to mental health and well-being needs is part of their role. And I take Stephen's point that this percentage point could be higher, but the majority do think that providing advice on pursuing non-academic careers is part of their role as a doctoral supervisor. Again, these are some of the things that haven't changed since 2021. Supervisors still think that supervision has become more demanding over the past 5 years. A huge enjoyment in their role. 90% still really enjoy being a doctoral supervisor, which I think is terrific. I think another key finding for us is the way in which doctoral supervision feeds into the quality of research overall. So 79% would agree that doctoral supervision improves the quality of their own research. I think that's a huge finding when we consider the way in which doctoral research feeds into research productivity more broadly. And again, there's just over half would say that doctoral complexity of doctoral study has increased over the past 5 years. There have been some things that have changed, and I think I wanted to just draw your attention to the attitudes to diversity have slightly shifted. Increasing the diversity of doctoral candidate populations would improve the research culture at my workplace institution. The percentage of people who would agree with that has actually dropped to 68%. Again, should doctoral funding be targeted at underrepresented groups? In 2021, that was 21% said yes. It's dropped to 16% in 2024. There's also a slightly more chance that our respondents would say that the doctoral candidates are less prepared for doctoral study, or at least their preparedness for doctoral study has not increased or improved over the last 5 years than there was in 2021. We also asked some new questions, and I wanted to invite you to read the report by all means, but if you want us to dig deeper into some of these cross sections that the data now provides us with, please do get in touch with us. We're more than happy to provide an in-depth analysis on any of the aspects of the data that we haven't had time to go into in the full report. I just want to draw your attention to, on this slide, the supervisors are only 50% of supervisors who take on candidates who are previously supervised by someone else don't get any institutional support. I think for that is a really interesting finding, which we're going to look into further through the research supervision project. We asked whether the research culture at people's institutions was collaborative, supportive, and inclusive when they considered it through the lens of doctoral supervision. I'm delighted to say that 83% agreed with that. There's a worrying proportion that didn't agree or didn't give their wholehearted support, but nevertheless, the majority agreed. I just wanted to end my segment by saying that we found overwhelmingly that doctoral supervisors love what they do. The number of people who said that it was the best part of their job was enormous. We were delighted with that, and I just wanted to give you a few slides, a few quotations from that from people who said that. And part of the role of the UK Research Supervision is indeed UK Research Supervision Survey is indeed to celebrate doctoral supervision. So I hope that the report does that too. Over to Doug.
Thanks, Owen. So Owen just told you how much supervisors love and enjoy and value their supervision. Time for a change in the mood music, because there are some real challenges that come out from the report as well. And the top 5 challenges from 24 and 21 are in the graphic that's on the screen. And there is a big red flashing light, which has perhaps been hidden away because supervision tends to be in the room. But this isn't just happening in the UK. I was on a meeting in Mexico a couple of weeks ago. This is happening internationally as well. 59% of supervisors say that there is a challenge in fostering their candidates' confidence, focus, and engagement. 59%. And that wasn't there at all in 21. It was a little bit there, and we had 14% expressing difficulties associated with COVID-19 and remote supervision. But the research culture in our institutions is almost certainly feeding into this really large number. This is something that we are going to be interrogating in more depth. Do please talk to your colleagues. Express this number. Let it be known, and let's out this. Another number I want to flag from this chart is, in fact, the fourth thing down on the left-hand side. Challenges associated with candidate issues with funding and financial issues. It's 17%, which is clearly a minority, but that compares with the equivalent number from 2021, which was 10%. So it's gone from 10% up to 17%, so a 70% increase in supervisors observing or noting that their research students are suffering financial issues. Yes, we've got the cost of living crisis. Potentially the worst of the cost of living crisis is behind us, but that is a genuine concern. Thanks, Owen. Supervisors are people. People are supervisors, and supervisors do find research supervision stressful, or elements of it stressful. So kind of similar to 3 years ago, we do have supervisors expressing anxieties that they felt in relation to their supervision, and some loss of sleep. It's a minority, so it's this grey bar at the kind of 30 to 32%, but we're living in a country where 34% can get you a huge parliamentary majority. So it's there, it's real, and it requires support of supervisors, and this is going to be ongoing. We know that candidates suffer anxiety. It's a reality that supervisors suffer anxieties in relation to their supervision. Thanks, Owen. 91% of supervisors feel valued by their students, but only 56% in this year's survey are feeling valued by their institutions. We saw that step change in 2021. It's still there. There's a slight improvement in feeling valued by their institution, but it's still down. Thanks, Owen. A lot supervisors say that increased institutional recognition is one thing that would really improve their ability to supervise. It's flagged by 25% of supervisors, a significant increase on the 12% who expressed this 3 years ago. Thanks, Owen. Another item that was on the first slide that I presented was policies on workload, or the workload allocation that a supervisor gets in relation to their research supervision. We're seeing quite a big mismatch between what supervisors think would be optimal in terms of their supervisory load, with 74% saying that between 1 and 4 candidates would be the ideal, and the institutional perspectives in terms of, well, so the official maxima of the values that we've put in green on this chart, and clearly the green bars are shoved a little bit to the, well, clearly to the right of the dark blue bars. We got 90% in several of the questions on this survey, almost complete unanimity. But this was the question where we got the most variation. Institutional policies on workload. There is not a national, or even within universities, there's variation between departments or between types of doctorate. Does your institution have a workload allocation for supervision? Yes, sometimes the hours are unknown. Majority, yes, but the hours are unknown. But plenty of places where there is no workload allocation, or there's a lack of clarity. And we can dig further into this workload issue. Where the supervisors do know what the workload allocation is, then in terms of primary supervision, secondary supervision, and informal support, we can ask, and we've got these numbers: 42% as the average hours per year as primary supervisor, 20 for secondary supervisor, and 0.6 for informal support. And we can take those data. Thanks, Owen. Next slide. That 42, 20, and 0.6, and these are then the green bars here. The dark blue bars are the number of hours the supervisors are reporting in terms of the time they are actually spending. And there's a systemic mismatch between the hours that the supervisors say they are spending supervising and the hours which they are allocated. And this is in the institutions which have got a workload allocation model. There's something not right here. And this is the biggest ever survey of supervisors in the UK. And this is what they are clearly saying, that the hours that they are being allocated by their institutions is a long way short of the time that they are expending on this supervisory activity, which is stuff that they love to do. Thanks, Owen. My final slide. This is the village. This is what's being sought. Having a consistent and supportive research environment is the single thing that can be done to improve research supervision. And I think this needs a village to enable doctoral and scholarship success, rather than the individual or 1 or 2 individual supervisors. They can't do it all. Thanks, Owen. Now I'm going to hand over to Karen.
Just unmute myself. That helps, doesn't it? Thank you very much to Owen, Doug, and of course to Stephen. I feel I've been lucky here. I've got the best bit. But I would say that, wouldn't I? Because I get to speak to you about team supervision and continuing professional development. And Dina, I've just spotted your question in the chat, which hopefully I can do my best to address or answer afterwards. So Owen, if you would move the slide on, thank you. So I think this is good news, but there are caveats to that. 76% of the respondents said that they had frequently or always taken part in team supervision. That's up 5% from the 2021 survey. The images that you see there are classic. You know, you have a 4-person skull of people pulling in the same direction and everyone moving in time in sort of perfect motion and poetry, against a tug of war where there may be differences of opinion with supervisors and people being candidates being felt that they're pulled in different directions, perhaps even supervisors feeling that they're being pulled in different directions. So we embrace the fact that team supervision seems to be increasing. Perhaps that's a reflection on the complexity of supervision that we heard about earlier, and that recognition that actually there is a very rich portfolio of activities and skills and values that are part of supervision that are being reflected now in this team approach. And we can see a little bit more of that on the next slide. So what we know is that it's increasing, but also that supervisory teams, supervisors say, they feel offers the candidate a better experience. So this isn't just about their ways of operating, but it's about the impact on the PGR, and I think that's really significant. But where I've exemplified that potential conflict and things to be reconciled is about the decision-making process. So who in a team does what? How are those decisions being made? Is there a robust conversation at the point where the candidate is appointed or taken on about the kinds of support and subject expertise and methodological constructs that that person is going to need support with? Or is it a case of whoever's available who didn't step backwards fast enough, or slightly more pragmatic approaches to who takes part in that supervisory team? So these are things that we would ask you to cogitate on. Next slide, please, Owen. There is a great finding here about mandatory supervision, and what we can see is that there is a correlation between mandatory supervision and continuing professional development and a supervisor's understanding of both the requirements of their role as supervisors and their confidence in supporting candidates from diverse backgrounds. So in a nutshell, mandatory training has a place. It's not a panacea. I wouldn't want everybody to rush out and suddenly say, right, we have to have something mandatory. Obviously, there are considerations to be made about the mode and the culture of your own institutions, but that there is a correlation. So it's worth taking that into consideration. You'll see the big bars there that jump out at you, the 91% that said it helps them understand their local policies and procedures for monitoring candidates. 74% say that mandatory training and professional development helps them to highlight public engagement and professional development opportunities. So that there is a richness in the capacity building that CPD is having on the candidate's experience. So this is positive for supervisors and positive for the postgraduate researchers. Next one, please, Owen. So how many higher education institutions are providing supervisor CPD? Well, happily, more than they were 3 years ago. So 70% say yes, it's mandatory. So this is an upward shift. As I say, I'm making no judgment about how or why that's being done, but it's an upward shift. There is more requirement there from institutions. So 29% now have some form of CPD that's being provided. If you can move on, please, Owen. So there are increased opportunities to enhance supervision practice. So opportunities for less experienced supervisors to be part of a wider supervisory team. Again, 48%. So it depends where you sit on the fence here. That's less than half of less experienced supervisors are being given an opportunity to be involved in the discussions, the role modelling, and the conversations that are being had. There's room for improvement and room for uplift. The other activities that people are involved in are much fewer. So engagement and opportunities for supervisors to be involved in mentoring relationships, in sharing of practice, and reflection on their practice. An opportunity to do that is really low. If you look at the occasionallys and the frequently, it's still only 16% of supervisors who are being given an opportunity to actively reflect on their practice and have conversations with other people. And if I may, I will draw on some focus group data that we've done as part of the RSVP project, where what we've heard from experienced supervisors particularly is that they really want to talk to each other. They want to have conversations with their peers. They want to talk about critical incidents. They want to share practice. and there is no time, or very little time, I should say, for that conversation to take place. And surely, with a commitment to CPD and to the quality of supervision, you know, in the UK, we can find time and make time for those conversations to be had. And you'll see the quotes there, you know, happy to my heart. It's people saying actually that they'd like some workshops. It tends to be the less experienced supervisors who really embrace a workshop. We know this from the focus groups, whereas more experienced supervisors are, as I say, looking for conversation time, looking for that voice to share with their colleagues. Moving on, please, Owen. There are some interesting and of note differences with engagement with CPD, particularly if you're looking here on the left. Arts and humanities and social science subjects were more likely to take part in CPD than their STEM counterparts. You'll see the stats there for yourselves. And Go Women, you are also more likely to take part in CPD. There are all sorts of implications for that, not in terms of workload, but also in terms of what's offered and how it's happened, and how supervisors from science and different genders are encouraged to take advantage of this. It needs consideration within your cultural context. So there's some lovely quotes on here. They warm my heart. We were all delighted by them. We promised there were more than 6. We've just put 6 on a slide to give you a sense of what people are after. And I say I won't read out to you, but you know, we're looking at not just useful training on regulations, but also methodology, epistemology. You know, that design process. So you know, the technicalities of being a supervisor, as well as things like leadership and being able to support careers and etc. etc. So it's a wide call for support, and actually you know, a very reassuring commitment. And you know, and you see the free text for yourselves. People are very happy to engage with this on the whole. Bowen, if you would be so kind. So as Owen said earlier on, Doug and I had the enviable task of trying to pull together some of this data and make what we hope are a few kind of modest considerations. They're not recommendations, because it's not our place to make recommendations, but we offer these to you in the spirit of you giving some consideration to the things that resonate with you. So I will speak to the first 2, and then Owen will pick up the other 2. We've done this for different stakeholders because we thought that it would be helpful to do so. It also mimics the way in which the Concordat for researchers is written. And so for those of you in researcher developer roles who want to be able to correlate the 2, then hopefully we've made that possible. But there's also a bit of politics in this, in that we hope that you can perhaps share the relevant findings with change agents, senior managers, and funders. And I know Stephen's still listening, so that's for him to take back to UKRI. Allow me then to speak to research organisations. As you've heard, we would invite you to consider, if you are in a position to do so, the time allocation practices for doctoral supervision. We heard it in 21, we've heard it in 24 again. Supervisors are not being provided with sufficient time to do what is a very important activity, and which is an increasingly complex activity that actually the increase in team supervision is suggesting needs more than one person. We would also ask you to consider an acknowledgement of hidden supervisors. Those are the people who are typically at the early stage of their careers and who are often brought into supervisory teams. You may have postdocs who are informally supervising in a lab scenario, or who are in a library, or who are on the end of a Zoom call. That team can be expanded at ease in a way, and I say that advisedly. None of this is easy. It's all going to take some thought and criticality, and some pragmatism, but there are a great pool of people out there who are already supporting supervision, who are in their early stages, who aren't being acknowledged formally, and as a result are probably not including that informal mentoring advice that they're giving on their CVs. So we're hampering their professional development as well. So in properly recognising that we serve a number of different people, the PGRs, the postdocs, and the institution. The mandatory piece speaks for itself. There's a correlation between confidence levels and mandatory induction, as is the use of team supervision. As I say, we're not suggesting for a minute that this is easy, it needs thinking through, but there are more people that can add to the richness of the doctoral life cycle and who can complement particular and specific skills. There are also people outside of HE, what we would call tertiary supervisors as far as RSVP is concerned, who you might want to draw in, parachute in, if you will, for things like commercialization experience, for professional practice examples, and they may be by a case-by-case basis. We'd also ask you that you recognise, acknowledge and value in whatever way serves your piece on research culture, which most institutions are undertaking. Make sure that supervision is part of that research culture piece, please. Next slide, please. Doctoral schools, slightly different, but some overlap here. The mandatory introduction for supervisors obviously fits within the remit of many doctoral schools, but also some fairly quick marketing. And I'm sorry if that sounds crass to people, but I didn't realise until relatively recently, and I'm ashamed to say this, but that our international recruiters for PGRs tell me that governments quite often ask for evidence of high quality supervision before they will give consent to support the scholarship and the funding of a PGR at a particular university. If that's the case across the board, some website and highlighting to prospective candidates and those potential funders that you are engaged and you care about as a doctoral school, the quality of supervision probably isn't going to do any harm. So maybe speak to your comms people about how that takes place. And as I say, structuring CPD for supervisors at different needs and different career stages, and in a language that supports different subject disciplines also. It takes extra work, but it shows dividends. I'm going to hand over to Doug to speak to the other stakeholder groups.
Thanks a lot, Karen. Yeah, I'm going to try and end up at about 15:15, so we've got 15 minutes. So, so we've got 15 minutes for chat. So I won't dwell on all of these. These are all set out at the end of the full report. There's a link to it in the chat already. At the level of granularity of funders, so maintaining high expectations for engagement in CPD for supervisors and doctoral researchers. Now we're seeing this from UKRI already. I was doing something in for AHRC just this week, confirming this. But UKRI aren't the only funders. As Karen says, so they're international bodies. Universities fund an awful lot of doctoral students, probably more than anybody else. So is this engagement in CPD part of the processes for university funders in terms of allocation? The third bullet point here is one I want to get quite heavy on, because as of this week, announcement from the Living Wage Foundation, real living wage is £12.60 per hour. If you do a calculation based on that, then the net pay of somebody on the real living wage as of this week is £1,737 higher than the UKRI minimum stipend for doctoral standard. £1,737 based on the 37-hour week. Back in the day, the Roberts Review tried to align doctoral stipends with the average graduate salary. It's nowhere near that. It's now significantly below the real living wage in terms of take home. This is huge in terms of student well-being, and it's enormous in terms of EDI. Why should our doctoral candidates be taking the financial hit can they afford to do that? Depends a lot on their living, family, etc. circumstances as to whether they can afford to do that. I'm delighted that UKRI are reviewing this at the moment. I know there's an ongoing process in respect of that, but that almost all UK institutions align with the UKRI minimum, and it's significantly below the real living wage in terms of take home, is an enormous issue. And it feeds into what I was saying previously, that supervisors are noting financial issues for their students. The final slide, please, Owen. This is all about supervisors, so we're going to end it talking about supervisors. If you're a supervisor, key thing, reflect on your supervisory practice. Whatever mechanism you choose to take advantage of in respect of that, it's kind of up to you. You could talk to colleagues. There might be some networking opportunity within your institution, perhaps through your involvement in assessment, midpoint assessment or final viva. You'll see what other supervisors are doing. If you've got an issue, talk with someone about it, and you will find it enriching. You will find that you value your own supervision more, and being able to express and reflect on what's gone right and what's gone wrong is a really healthy thing to do. So if there's anything you want to take away from this, then reflect on your supervisory practice, please. And then bottom bullet point, over 90% of supervisors enjoy and value supervision, do continue to enjoy that process. Developing doctoral candidates is something that a lot of us do find is the best part of the job, and hopefully that is true for you and can continue to be true for you. If it's not true for you at the moment, then do seek out help within your institution or elsewhere. It's not an area to be alone on. So enjoy supervision.